So the other day, I was kind of just laying in bed. I had gotten home from my studio where I was mixing, and they have like a nice SSL console from like the 1980s there. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, I know there are EQ plugins that try to emulate these classic like analog EQs, right? But I didn't know if there were any free ones, so I just typed in like free SSL EQ or something like that, like emulation. And what came up was the plugin I'm going to talk about today, which is SSQ by Analog Obsession. Now, I instantly had a good feeling about this plugin because I actually haven't heard of it, but it's actually apparently a pretty popular plugin. But if you remember in the video I made a few days ago on the LALA compressor, that was also made by Analog Obsession. So they have a good reputation. This is a free plugin you can go download, and I'm just going to say right now, you should get this plugin, like 100%. Even if you don't think you'll use it much, it's just a good plugin to have. So let's go over it real quick. So I did write some things here. Now, I had some people yelling at me in the previous videos for using loops, so fair enough. I did actually write my own MIDI for this, so you can see that right here. So I have the EQ turned off. Let's just listen to this without any EQ. Cool, and I'm going to turn the guitar off because I want to focus on the piano for now. All right, so I'm going to turn the EQ on. This is what it sounds like with some EQ. It sounds great. And just to prove it, I'm going to use the regular FL parametric EQ. I tried to make the same moves on it that I did on there. Hold on. A-B it. So, they go about it in a little bit of a different way, but I, for this instance, prefer the SSQ plugin a lot. So let's get into it. What do we have here? Now, if you're not used to mixing on a console, this can look kind of confusing, but I'll try to go over it as simple as possible. We got high pass, low mids, high mids, and highs. So these are all different sections, much like the parametric EQ in FL has these different bands. You can kind of think of these like bands. So how does it work? Well, I'll go over the low mids and the high mids first because they have the most things going on here. So dB, this is just, turning it up or down. They've got the Q, which is the width of the EQ. So how big or steep it is. I'm kind of bad at explaining it, so I'll just show you. Like when you do your scroll wheel on the FL thing here, you're adjusting the Q, how thin or like wide of a range it affects. And then right here, you can sweep through this and pick like a frequency. So this is where you're centering in on. This is how steep, and this is how much you're boosting or cutting. It's that simple, and it works like that on these other ones. On the high pass and low pass filters, it's a little bit different, but same thing applies. This is your, like, you can think of this as just like a low cut, this one. So this is where you're starting it on, and this is where you want to focus it. Now, this one is actually a high cut, I believe. This one is low, and this button turns it on and off. This one is a little bit weird. It's like a bell curve. So with this off, it won't do a bell, but with this on, the shape will be a bell, kind of like what these other ones are. So this one has like a button to turn that on and off. Now, the reason I really like this EQ is just the way it affects the sound. Listen again. And compared to the regular parametric EQ, this one has a kind of like clean, smooth, vintage quality to it. It sounds magical, honestly, is the way I would describe it. It really does emulate that nice saturation, nice classic feel that an actual console will do really well. And there's one thing I haven't covered yet that's actually my favorite thing about this, which is this knob right here. This is an input knob. So if you adjust this, it's how much signal is actually going into the EQ. Now you might notice I have it all the way at plus 24 and the volume's not changing. That's because this EQ compensates for that. So this input, it will compensate how much you're doing it by like controlling it down itself. So what does that mean? Well, it means that this isn't really like a loudness. The output is just how much is going out of it. It means it basically acts like a saturation knob because you're controlling the input of the signal going into it, but because it's compensating for it, all it's really doing is adding more color. So you can think about this as a saturation knob. The more you turn this up, the more color it adds to the sound. I think it sounds really, really good. And it's most notable if you just solo it on and off. So I'm going to do that next. Now it does get a little bit louder because the EQ is being affected more, but you can still adjust that in the output if you would like. So yeah, this knob right here, you could honestly just plop this on something and not touch any of the EQ knobs at all and just affect this input knob, and it'll basically just be like coloring the signal, which is really cool. So that's another thing you could use this for. Now, does this plugin have any downsides? I would say one, this plugin doesn't replace the parametric EQ. This one is obviously a lot easier to use. It shows you everything. It's way more visual and it's quicker. So honestly, and this one also doesn't color the sound. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're trying to make a really electronic sounding song, not analog sounding at all, this EQ is probably not the right move. You could still use it, but it's probably not the right move just because it doesn't give it the feel that you're going for. If you're going for more digital EDM like sound, probably go for a parametric EQ like this or Pro Q4 or 3, or if you have one of those, because this has its own sound to it. This doesn't really have its own sound to it. It's just EQing. So there's that. And then obviously this one is a lot more complicated. I'd say like this one is a lot quicker. So by no means does this replace the parametric EQ, but it's just another option, and it's a really good option if you know what you're doing with it and you know what you want going into it.